Hey everybody, Tom here with Hidden Beats, and today we are talking with Brad from the Crash Test Dummies. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great and love getting to talk to you today. I've been a fan forever, so it's going to be fun to get to pick your brain a little bit.
Indeed, I look forward to being picked over.
So I mean, I'm sure I'm going to have some cookie cutter questions, and you've probably heard this a bunch of times, but what inspired the name of Crash Test Dummies?
What inspired the name of Crash Test Dummies? Well, one day when the band was rehearsing at this little cafe we used to play at, a medical student friend of mine came in and said he'd just seen these films with crash test dummies in them. And they were a relatively new thing at the time. It was the late 1980s. And I was like, Crash Test Dummies, that'd be a good name for a band. And we just adopted it there and then.
I mean, that's a
Much
pretty
more
smooth
to it
way.
than that.
Does the band's name kind of reflect the philosophy you guys have together, or is it just simply that's what it was?
I just thought it was kind of a humorous take on human nature to imagine these totally anatomically correct beings who are nevertheless, you know, inanimate.
Hmm. Now, your guys' music has been often described as quirky, offbeat. What influence do you, or influences, I guess, over your career, over the span of the band, has shaped you guys?
Um, what influences have shaped us?
Yeah, like musicians or other artists or just other things in general that shaped your music. How you guys come up with what you
Well,
come up with.
I would say that the first music that I ever heard was my mom singing when I was a little kid, and she used to sing to me at night. Me and my little brother, who is now my brother, Dan Robertson plays bass for us. Um, so she would sing us songs from the Mary Poppins soundtrack, for example, because it was a popular movie at the time, around
Hmm.
in 1964. And that had a very permanent influence on me. I came to love um, ballads through my mom's singing of lullabies to us at night.
Okay.
Uh, and then when I got old enough, I started buying these records. They were made by a company called K-Tel, who are actually out of Winnipeg, but who was selling records nationally. And they were essentially greatest hits compilations from whatever year that happened to come out in. And what the company did was uh, they edited all the songs down to the point where they were much shorter than they originally were. They might take out a guitar solo or they'd fade a song at the end prematurely. And they were able, therefore, to put 11 songs on each side of a piece of vinyl.
Okay.
In fact, what they called 22 greatest hits with 22 of the greatest stars.
Hmm.
That's how the ad campaign went. And so, when I was about 8 years old, that was the kind of thing that appealed to me. And I used to buy those records. And so I was influenced by the top 40 of the day. And then when it came to writing records, our first record was influenced by, well, in my case, I would say by folk music and particularly the Roaches, Roches. Or I'm sorry, yeah, Roche is how they spell their last name, but the plural is the Roaches. They're the
Hmm.
Roach sisters. They're three sisters that sing these incredible three-part harmonies. They had a big influence on how Ellen sings her backup vocals,
Okay.
um, and they had a big influence on how I wrote melodies. Um, I I was also listening to Katie Lang and Dwight Yoakam and Lyle Lovett in those days.
Yeah.
The first record, Writing Ghosts That Haunt Me, kind of new country at the time. And then when God Shoveled His Feet came along, I applied some of my interest in XTC to the songwriting. XTC are notorious for doing these interesting key changes and playing chords that are off the map, off the beaten track. And so I wanted to combine that with a blend of guitars and synthesizers because I play guitar, but I've been very inspired by the synthesizer laden record by Annie Lennox called Diva.
Mm-hmm.
And that had just come out in 92, I think. And I was enamored of it. Maybe it was 91. I was enamored of it, and I wanted to write something that had a little bit of that flavor in it, but also had, was fleshed out with real electric guitars. Diva was very much just an electronic sounding record. It was all programmed, whereas we had human beings on our record. Not to say that one is better than the other. It's just what we did differently.
Yeah, and each of them has their own feel, and it's good for what it is. So
Yeah,
that's music for you.
yeah.
And now you guys are just released. I think it was a couple days ago now. Released the track "Sacred Alphabet." How do you think that's been received so far?
Well, on the second day that it was out, I looked at Spotify and it already had 10,000 listens, which I thought was pretty good. And I'm told it's very good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the numbers are now, but that's of course how things are done now. The last time I released a record, people they still tried to sell their songs to radio, but now that really isn't the case. You more try and get yourself placed on playlists on streaming platforms.
Yeah.
And so Sacred Alphabet is on, all of the streaming platforms, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music or iTunes or YouTube or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. How's that transition been for you, moving into more of a digital world like that?
Oh, it's been very interesting. We recorded our song remotely. I recorded the vocals and piano off the floor in New York City, and then I sent the tracks to my various band members who are spread out amongst the cities of Winnipeg, Toronto, and Halifax. And they each gave me their input and sent it back from their own home recording studios, played along to the tracks that I had created. And then I took everybody's parts and assembled them in New York and mixed them. And I don't have another record in the can or anything like that. I've just written the one song and put it out because it seems to be what people do these days.
It's definitely a different culture about, instead of putting out a full record, it's more a bunch of singles and then maybe a smaller EP or something like that. It seems to be the route a lot of people are going.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now you guys, living in different cities and you've been together for quite some time. Has there been challenges that you've kind of had to overcome with different things, or lots of travel or virtual writing sessions now, I guess?
We don't have that many hurdles to overcome. It's true that we're spread out, but whenever we need to rehearse, it's because we're going to tour, and so we just schedule a rehearsal into the beginning of the tour, and we all fly to whatever town the first show is going to be in, and we rehearse there, and we stay at a hotel, and it's all good.
Okay, that makes it nice and simple then.
Yeah.
Has there been any fun tours that you can remember that you had some crazy experiences on?
Oh, well, I just finished a month-long tour in America and had some pretty crazy experiences.
Yeah.
It's quite a quite a shock to see how many tent cities there are across the nation.
That is true, yes.
I've stayed in any number of hotels where there was tent cities behind the hotel or in the vicinity of the hotel, and a lot of homelessness. Uh, and hotel staff are just utterly abused by corporate headquarters. You hear them, their bosses talking to them on the phone, and it's just ridiculous how rude they are. It's very discouraging. There's not, and hotels are also low on staff,
Hmm.
so just checking in can be a nightmare. And trying to get your room, we ended up waiting for hours for rooms,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's a pretty crazy world out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of COVID and everything that kind of happened, a lot of things shifted and changed for sure.
Yeah.
Did COVID affect you a lot? Were you able to just kind of keep doing your thing, and or
Well,
did
you
you?
know, I hunkered down during COVID and learned how to play classical piano and got a composition teacher and started to understand how to write in the classical style. And by the classical style, I mean something more specific, which is counterpoint. Counterpoint is a 400-year-old method for writing melodies that I started incorporating into my own writing. And counterpoint is what's behind Sacred Alphabet, our new single.
I can hear some of the piano and stuff in there.
Yeah, yeah, the piano part was something I wrote from scratch. I ordinarily Ellen writes the piano parts, and I write the songs, but she writes the specific piano part, just like Dan writes the bass part, and everybody writes their own parts to the song that I've written.
D-
Um,
Does it get, convoluted sometimes if everyone's trying to put in their 2 cents and someone doesn't necessarily think it works, or have you guys kind of got a good method about it?
Fortunately for me, I have people that are on my side, and there's not a lot of bickering about how the music should go or shouldn't go. We we all get along pretty well, and everybody's contribution is welcomed and sort of democratically processed. And ultimately, I have to make a decision one way or another how things are going to go, because it can't be a total democracy, or it just ends up being too many chefs in the kitchen.
Hmm.
There's a better expression than that. What is the expression?
I mean, that's one of there's
Broth. Too many something for the broth. I forget what it is. Anyways, you get the picture. You get
yeah.
the
And I mean, obviously it's been working pretty well. You guys, you've started back in like the 80s and you're still going. So
Yeah,
it seems to be the right trick there.
yeah. We did have a long period where we were fallow and didn't do much, but we returned to the road in 2019, and we've been going strong ever since.
I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to check out a live show myself. I'm in Ottawa, so whenever we get good music out here, it's hard to miss for sure.
Well, hopefully we'll be in Ottawa sometime during November and December of the end of the year.
Okay, I'll definitely make sure to check that out and see about getting out. Now, you guys have obviously some cultural milestone songs like the Superman song and what do you think that success has had on your career so far, just with those that became cult classics almost?
Well, those songs have made it possible for me to do what I do now, which is have a career in music. Um, they're the greatest blessing of my life, and
Hmm.
they represent a combination of skill and luck.
I mean, I still have Superman song on one of my playlists today that I listen to regularly. I
Oh,
grew up with it, and it was just kind of something that I felt and I wanted to listen to more often for sure.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that song stands the test of time. in a way.
Well, why do you think it resonates so well with people?
Uh, well, I think that the spare arrangement has something to do with it. It's very simple, and I think people appreciate the clarity of the lyric that that is the result of that spare arrangement, musically speaking.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it tugs a little at people's heartstrings because it's got a kind of sentimentality to it that's hidden underneath the obvious ironies of Superman and him being a fictional cartoon character.
Yeah. And a lot of these things can, those sentimentalities and touch people's emotions and experiences on all different levels for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I have a couple questions that I always like to ask people. It's a little bit more insight to you personally and kind of get some feelers about how your brain ticks. One of my favorite ones, and especially coming from someone like yourself, is what is something on a go-to playlist that you're listening to now that people might not expect that you listen to?
Um, Bach. I
Okay.
listen to a lot of Bach. I'm a fanatic.
Yeah, I actually have Bach on one of my playlists too, to be honest.
Um, and Robert Schumann and Eric Satie and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Palestrina,
Okay.
who's a composer from the Renaissance, I believe.
I'll have to look them up for sure
Vocal
because
music.
I love a good composer. Like one of my favorites is actually John Williams, who does a lot of like the movie compositions, like Jurassic Park, things like that.
Oh yeah,
Just because it gives you, whenever you hear it, you can remember the movie, you can remember visuals, and it's like a whole story just wrapped in that one piece of music.
yeah. You know what really encapsulated uh, its subject well was the soundtrack for Jaws, which is
Yes.
something I grew up with.
Yeah, that was a good one for sure.
Down it, down it, down it, down it, down it.
Hmm. I actually
Great.
got to meet Richard Dreyfuss at a Comic-Con and got to talk to him a bit.
Really?
Yeah, that was fun.
I'll bet.
And so another fun question I have, and this one actually I think will be good because you've experienced obviously a lot of interviews in your career. Is there a question that you think should be asked more that's not asked enough?
Ah, that's a very good question. I'm not quite sure how to answer it. I don't I don't know that there is. I think I've been asked every question under the sun.
I could imagine, yeah.
I mean, it's always nice when people probe a little deeper than the name of the band, which you've gone ahead and done. So thank you for that.
Hmm.
Uh, but no, there's nothing in particular that I wish that I could talk about more than that I don't talk about as much.
Yeah, I
Or,
suppose it's hard with the amount of interviews you've probably gone through.
um, well, yes and no. Now that I'm quite a bit older and have enough years under my belt, there's a range of questions that people can ask me that's a little more broad than what could have been asked of me in 1994 when I was doing all those thousands of interviews.
Hmm. Is there questions that you've been asked that you utterly hate answering?
Uh, I don't love the where'd you get the name for your band question,
Okay.
but you already called it. You said that was, a generic question that you hesitated to ask. So I, I'm just being totally honest with you.
Hey, and I appreciate that. This question actually helps me. I may not be the best at researching at times, and I try to make it interesting because I'm someone who likes to watch an interview and learn something different. So I
Hmm.
try to gear my questions towards a little bit different than just what's your favorite song on this track or what's the band's name. But there's always going to be a couple of those questions that need to be sprinkled in.
Naturally enough, yeah.
Hmm. Now, one question my writer wanted me to ask, and I wasn't sure if I was going to. Do you think a hot dog is a sandwich? He loves
No,
this question because it sparks debate.
no, I don't. I
Is it
think the sandwich is on flat bread, not a bun,
okay?
which is not oblong or cigar shaped. A sandwich, I mean, you could make, I suppose, the argument that the submarine sandwich resembles the hot dog a little bit because it's got that sort of bun shape.
Mm-hmm.
But no, a hot dog is not sandwich meat.
I
A
mean,
hot
yeah,
dog,
that's true. Yeah, you don't typically have that in fall in the sandwich category of meat, that's for sure.
no. I could imagine a hot dog sandwich. It might be interesting. I would probably slice the hot dogs in half,
Yeah, I
and
would think that'd be the way to go.
fry them, and then lay them out flat on the bread.
Mm-hmm. But it makes for an interesting, off-topic conversation for sure.
Absolutely. As you can tell, I'm quite interested.
Mm-hmm. Now, because you've had a nice, long career, is there a piece of information that you're, a tidbit that you might give to artists up and coming nowadays with especially what you've experienced with the older part of the career into the new?
You know, I have no idea what to tell people. I'm a terrible person to ask because my musical career flourished in the 90s, and that was a time when there was no such thing as streaming and when CDs were at their height of sale. So the strategies that we employed then were completely different from the strategies that one employs now. And I have to have a management team help me take care of all that stuff. So I couldn't tell anybody what to do. The only advice I can give anybody is do what makes you tick and don't worry about anything else.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
That's,
that's good advice too.
well, thanks.
A lot of people need some reassurance, especially from someone like yourself who's had this type of career. You've seen and heard probably all of it, so the type of
Well, and
insurance is good.
I think that our songs succeeded in spite of themselves, as it were. They didn't fit into a neat genre that was clearly identifiable with a particular radio format. You know, we kind of had to break down some fences there, but once it caught on like a house on fire.
That's for
Both
sure.
Superman song and
Yeah, I said, that was a song growing up for me. So when the Crash Test Dummies name came across my email, I was like, oh damn, I gotta make sure I get on this one for sure.
oh, thanks. I
Hmm.
appreciate that.
Now, I guess so. My last question, and this is an important one for me, and I think it'll be an important one for other people listening, is why do you still do music? What keeps you going?
Well, I'm not tired of it. I still like it. I still enjoy it. I enjoy touring. I enjoy the camaraderie of being on the road with a group of friends. I enjoy performing. I've enormously enjoyed writing a new song and performing it, and the response to the new song live has been fantastic. I've been getting standing ovations for it, which is a surprise to me because people don't necessarily take to music they haven't heard before. So I couldn't be more happy, really, with the way everything is working out.
I mean, it's definitely going well, and I'm hoping you're going to be writing more songs. I know you only wrote the one, and I hope there's, maybe some thoughts and some new things coming up sooner
Well,
or
I've
later.
already got written a companion piece to that song.
Okay.
I've only completed the lyric. I haven't completed the music. I've got to start on it, but it'll probably take some time for me to get there,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that'll come out in a year or so.
Well, I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Thanks.
Well, that's all I have down here for you. Is there any last words you want to leave to fans or new listeners at all?
No, I just want to thank you for a great interview. I really enjoyed talking.
I definitely appreciate that. It was a pleasure for me, like I said, fan. So I tried to make sure we had some good conversations going on here.
I'm so glad you certainly did.
Well, I appreciate that. So you enjoy the rest of your day, and we're gonna make sure we link all the, the new track and everything in the description of the video and where everyone can find you so they can experience the joy of music that I experienced listening to you guys growing up.
Thank you so much.
All right, you have a good one.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye now.
Bye bye.